If I can love them and feel so strongly about them, and if they are not feeling the same way about me, then obviously there's something wrong with me. I probably don't match their standard. This person is out of my league. If I keep loving them, they will love me back. So this is the caretaker who's waiting and who thinks that once you keep putting in effort, the other person will reciprocate. But here's the thing, you need to understand that then they're not reciprocating because they love you as much as you love them. They're reciprocating because they feel obliged.
Pour the Heart Out, Episode 5, One-Sided Love.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Pour the Heart Out. And if you tuned into this, we know you're on the same train that we're talking about today. We're talking about one sided love. And after a lot of efforts of not starting this video with a Chana Meria song, here we are again with Praneeth Kaur, a counseling psychologist and a relationship expert. So, Praneeth, let's start by understanding that if someone's in love one sided, how does it impact them emotionally?
Right. So, the thing about love is this is, I think, one emotion that you really want to be reciprocated. And if it's not reciprocated, if you don't get it in return, it really becomes torture. It leads to a lot of anxiety, leads to a lot of calculations and speculations, sleepless nights, a lot of things going on in your stomach, in your head, and really everywhere in your body, because you can't help but think that why is it that this person is not giving me what I'm capable of giving them? And it really starts to then eventually boil down to what's wrong with me, that this person is not able to reciprocate something that I expect. I mean, if they are the right match for me, why am I not the right match for them? If I can love them and feel so strongly about them, and if they are not feeling the same way about me, then obviously there's something wrong with me. you know, I am probably not their type. I probably don't match their standard. So, a lot of people using statements such as, this person is out of my league. So, the moment you think that this person is up here, and you're down here, and they're out of your league, it means that you're constantly comparing yourself with them on some standard or the other, or perhaps the people that they've dated in the past, or the people that they're attracted to or have a crush on. And you're constantly undermining yourself and putting yourself in a position where you feel that there is something terribly wrong with you. So one thing that being in an equation where you're experiencing love for this person, but you're not getting it in reciprocation, is that it takes a major toll, a major hit on your self-esteem. You really start to weigh yourself and start to evaluate yourself based on how much this person is doing for you. And you're constantly waiting, like it's like you're just sitting there to convince yourself that no, they're also in love with you. So whatever, let's just say if they're your friend, so something sweet that they've done for you, and you'll start to look at it as, oh, I know they have feelings for me too, wherein deep down you know that they don't, but you're just waiting to convince yourself and to give yourself those evidences that that is in fact the case. So you see how you're putting yourself through so much of emotional turmoil, where there is constant calculations and speculations happening, where you're constantly, your mind is running, you're overthinking all the time. And because you have to strategize everything and do a lot of meaning making out of their behavior and what you're doing and how they are perceiving you, you actually end up in a place where uh, a lot of people end up becoming extremely dysfunctional, and all they can do is just sit and think about it, and they think that they can't get on with their life until and unless this one thing is sorted out. They need to figure out where they're at, where the other person's at. A lot of people who walk into therapy with this kind of a problem always say that I just want to know, you know, aar ya par ho jana chahiye. I just want to know where I'm at and where they're at, and so that I'm sure. And yet they keep putting themselves in that self-sabotaging position where they're not going to be very direct about how they're feeling, and they'll keep reading the behaviors of the other person. There's going to be no direct communication whatsoever. And you will continue to expose yourself to situations where you're inviting nothing but anxiety, and where communication is only happening in your head from both the sides. And that's just really problematic. So you are saying that you want an answer and you want hour and power, but you also don't want to listen to your answer because you somewhere know what that is and you don't like it because it is not in your favor. So let's put it this way, that you're not looking for an answer, you're looking for the answer which you want to hear, and for as long as you're sure that you won't hear that, you won't be direct about it. And if you want to convince yourself that the answer is what I want it to be, then you'll just like read too much into their behavior, and this leads to, when you start to come to terms with, okay, it's not happening, your sense of self starts to come crumbling down. There is meaninglessness that results from it. A lot of people fall into this depressive phase where they become absolutely, just stuck to their bed, not being able to come out, lots of overthinking, lots of anxiety. A lot of people come to a point where they don't see the point in living anymore because they really had their entire sense of self coming from this one person. And imagine they experience almost a loss of something that they never even had, because they had really built an entire story in their mind. And every Bollywood song that they listened to, every movie that they watched, they and their partner were there. Every couple that they saw, they and their partner were there. Someone who wasn't even their partner, but that's how they saw it. So now, the moment they start to come closer to the fact that it is, in fact, not the case, they, in fact, don't feel what I feel, that's when they start to experience a lot of a sense of loss. So there is grief, there's anger, there's still bargaining, all the stages of grief, right? There's a phase of depression, and a lot of people also end up giving up, or at least come to that point where they're on the verge of it. So it can start as something really like a crush or an infatuation, but if you keep pursuing it and you keep putting yourself in a position where you're not getting what you want from the other person, it can really lead to you into a position where you're very devastated.
So, Praneeth, like you rightly said, that different people respond differently to this equation. So, what do you think, in your opinion, what determines how they respond? If they stop, if they obsess about it, if they directly confess, if they dismiss it. So, what do you think determines that response?
Right. Whether you're going to obsess over this person that you can't have, or you're going to just let them go. Whether you're going to go after them, become a stalker, follow them on all the social media platforms, try to know, about their whereabouts, or you'll just completely deny that you feel this in the first place because you don't want to experience rejection. What is going to determine what you're going to do is not the other person that you're in love with. It's not the relationship equation, and it's only where you're coming from and how you look at yourself. So, the kind of sense of self that you hold, the kind of childhood that you've had, the kind of attachment style that you grew up with is going to determine what you're going to do. So, let's say that if you were brought up in an environment by a set of parents who were very neglectful. There was a lot of negligence in your childhood, and that led you to believe that just really insecure that my parents are not spending time with me because they don't like me, or perhaps they like my sibling better, or they don't love me enough, or if my parents are not spending enough time with me, I'm not a good child, you know I'm not deserving of their love. So they then continue to be in a position where they keep thinking that, they have this core belief formed that I am not deserving of love. And then if they are coming from this belief, they will continue to stay in this equation of one-sided love, and they're going to continue to expose themselves to such experiences. And how they're going to react is with a lot of insecurity, because these children have a lot of separation anxiety. They want to hold on to the parent very tightly, because they constantly keep feeling that they don't deserve love. So they feel if it is coming their way, they just have to hold on to it because it's not going to come again. So like just hold on really tightly. So they can act very possessive, they can be very insecure, they can constantly, like the overthinking bit that we were talking about, the constant speculation bit is done by this person who's anxiously attached in their relationships. If perhaps you're someone whose parents were um, neglectful in a way that they didn't look at you, they didn't discipline you, they didn't give you a set of boundaries, they didn't give you structure, and you were brought up in a way where just because they didn't want to deal with your emotional part of your emotional self, they just gave you everything that you asked for. So you became this person who lacks discipline, who lacks accountability, and who lacks boundaries, doesn't have boundaries, doesn't understand the boundaries of other person, and ends up becoming very entitled. Usually see these characters as leads in movies, who are just like, you're my girl, I'm just going to pick you up and I'm going to take you with me. And a lot of women characters also, perhaps we see that more in men. However, in reality, it's not that it's found more in men. Obviously, there's that catch to it, that in Eastern culture, male boy is given more preference over the female child. Male boy, male child is given more preference over the female child. So automatically they are brought up with more privilege, and hence have more chances of developing entitlement. So a person who is in one-sided love sort of an equation, and they really like someone, they might act with a lot of entitlement that, if I love him or her, then they love me back. If I want them, then why wouldn't they? You know, what's wrong with me? I'm perfect. Why wouldn't anyone love me? So they think it's very obvious, and the other person kind of sort of owes it to them to give them back that love. So that's sort of an entitlement, that's sort of a behavior that we see where the other person's not caring about the person's feelings, and they're just really pushing themselves on this other person. All of this is coming from a place where you were brought up with a lot of entitlement, and you had a privilege to get away from it. you know um, if perhaps you are someone who's extremely insecure because every time you had put your guard down in front of your parents, every time that you showed them that you're vulnerable, you wanted their affection, their love, they rejected you. So you're very insecure, and you do not want to come across as vulnerable ever again, because you have this constant fear that I will be rejected if I do that. So, as a way to shield and guard yourself, what you'll do is that you'll form this wall of like an inflated sense of self around yourself, and you'll put yourself on a pedestal that doesn't even exist just so you can feel protected. So if you'll have feelings for someone but they don't have the same feelings for you, you'll keep thinking about them in your mind, and you'd really want to be with them, and you're going to experience those very subtle signs of feeling sad or depressed, but you're not going to go up and tell them ever that this is how you're feeling. In fact, you can come to a point where you completely deny yourself that I feel this way about this person. So you will completely dismiss your own emotions, because that makes you feel very exposed and in a position where you can get hurt. So a person like this will never talk directly, will never share how they're feeling, and they won't even say it out loud to themselves. Now a person who, another pattern where a person who's learned that they were taken care of only when, or they were looked at or heard or seen only when they showed up in their relationship with their parents as a caretaker, when they were taking care of their parents, and it was only then when they were seen by the parents, otherwise parents were always doing their own thing. So this child learned that in order to be seen and heard and to be valuable, how I add value to a relationship is by being the giver, by being the fixer, the healer, the caregiver. So that's the part that they bring to this relationship as well, where they're experiencing a lot of love towards this one person, but they won't express it because their notion is that you just keep giving and that's how you earn value. So this kind of a person will think that if I'll keep giving, they'll turn around and they'll also value me the way I want them to value me. So this kind of a person will stay, they'll stay quiet, they have they will have lots of expectations, but they'll never say it, because in their mind the notion is the idea of doing it for the other person and making them happy is very glorified, you know. And for them it's all about how the other person is feeling, you know, and they're fooling themselves by telling themselves this. They're not recognizing that they're also feeling something, and they need to look into what their feelings are, you know. So all of these childhood patterns, how you were brought up, what your attachment style is going to determine how you're going to react or deal with such a situation.
Right. And another thing that you mentioned, especially I think in the initial discussion that we were having, was about how the communication here mostly is one way, wherein we're communicating with our minds, and we're not really talking to the other person, confession or whatever you want to call it. So, do you think that a direct, all out confession is always a good idea? And that's something that, I don't know, maybe helps you pour your heart out or something?
Right. So I think what keeps it difficult, what keeps it confusing, the fact that the other person doesn't know in most cases how you're feeling, or even if they know, they just have a hunch. You can never be really sure, um, and you don't know how they feel. Also, again, now you also have a little bit of hunch, but you're not sure, and because you're not sure, that's giving you that window to just stay and wait, right? And the fear why we don't confess, there is a very strong fear and insecurity behind it, and that's why we just always want to put a lid on it. And that fear is that I'll lose this person if I tell them that I love you, you know. And see, now that's the thing, this is where we are lying to ourselves. Let's say that you're friends with someone that you have developed feelings for, and you don't want to tell them because you think, if I'll tell them, I'll lose them even as a friend. But the question is, do you want to have them in your life as a friend? Are you okay with being their friend? Will you be okay if someone walks into their life as a lover while you're standing next to them as their friend? Will you be able to watch that? Will you be absolutely comfortable at dancing in their wedding? You know, ask yourself these questions: that are you willing to be their friend? If you're not, then what are you scared of losing? How do you feel when you're with them as a friend? Are you constantly waiting for something more? Do you constantly feel insecure and constantly feel on your toes that any day you'll lose this person to someone else? And if that is the case, then you're lying to yourself in saying that they're my friend and I don't want to lose them as a friend. If they say no, the truth is that you don't want to have them as a friend in the first place. What you're doing is that you're bargaining with yourself. This is what you want to have, but because you're not sure if you can have that, you're settling for this, but you're not happy here. This is constantly giving you a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and definitely taking your happiness away. You know, um, so here's what you need to ask yourself. Ask yourself that, if I take my feelings out of the equation, right? Let's just say that the other person doesn't want what you want. And if you take your feelings out of the equation, what is left behind in this relationship? Is there friendship there? Is there more that you get from this relationship? Other than like having that romantic side to it. And if there's something that's left behind and something that's precious enough, valuable enough from both of the sides to keep it in your life, then anyway, you don't have anything to worry about, even if you confess. If you know for sure that this person likes and respects what both of you have, and you like and respect what you have for them, or both of you have, then this is someone who will understand your emotions, and they will respect it. And if you can trust them with them being honest as to how they feel, and then both of you can communicate, sit down and navigate through, okay, how do we deal with this situation? There is always a way to communicate and figure out and come to a point where you can keep things going. But And this is a big but here that needs to be taken care of. Two things. One, there's a good likelihood that you'll end up lying to yourself that, yeah, there's a lot if I keep my feelings out, because you just don't want to let go of this person. And why not? Not because you're happy being their friend necessarily, but because being close to them keeps the hope alive that someday they'll also reciprocate. False hope, I should say. Second thing, sometimes when you confess your feelings to a person, let's say who doesn't deserve your vulnerability, and who starts to then use it in the sense that they tell you that they don't feel the same, but every time that they're feeling that, let's say, lonely, or that lack of validation in their life, or that they liked someone and they didn't get that reciprocation from them, and now they're feeling really shitty about themselves, they know that you're there on their back burner. So if this front burner goes for a toss, they can always, pick you up from the back burner and put you on the front burner. So to make sure that you don't become that person for them, you're not on standby, and you'll know that only when you're aware of what's going on and you're not blinded by the infatuation or love perhaps that you're experiencing. So consciousness will set you free. So I think that confessing can always set you free. Confession doesn't necessarily always have to mean an end to the equation. That is, if they're not reciprocating. If they are, well, then, it's a win win situation. But if they're not, it doesn't necessarily have to be the end of it. That is, if you have something more in that relationship. But I think either way, it's just going to really sort you. And then you can, if it's not something that you want, if you authentically ask yourself, and if it's not something that you want, you don't want to be just their friends and they're not reciprocating, then you can start to work on moving on and empty that space for someone else who's deserving of your love and who is ready to reciprocate it to you.
So, Praneeth, is this the only reason that people hold on to a one-sided equation for so long, or do you think there's more to it?
Right. There's definitely more. People continue to stay in a position where they are almost certain that the person doesn't love them back because of certain narratives that they have in their mind. One of the narratives being that, like I said, if I keep loving them, they will love me back. So this is the caretaker who's waiting and who thinks that once you keep putting in effort, the other person will reciprocate. But here's the thing: you need to understand that then they're not reciprocating because they love you as much as you love them. They're reciprocating because they feel obliged. You know, they feel very obligated, and they almost feel like they're doing the things for you out of guilt because you've done so much, because you've felt so much. And so many relationships begin like this, where one person confesses and the person getting rejected feels terrible, and the person rejecting them feels as terrible. And a lot of times, out of guilt, they end up coming into a relationship, you know. But this person is then not coming in a relationship because they also love you as much as you love them. So you need to ask yourself that that do you want to be with someone, or do you want them to love you back because you want them to love you back, or just because you have too many feelings for them and they feel that they will be a bad person to reject you. Because I'll tell you what, few months, years, days, whatever down the line, you're going to see it and you will constantly feel it, that there is an unequal love coming from both of your sides, that you will start to feel it, that I love them more than they do. And there is going to be that constant fear that you will operate from in the relationship, that because I earned them, I continue to have to perform or be in a position where I continue to earn them every day. And automatically the equation will be set in a way that I'm here and they're here, and that just then starts to lead to a lot of toxic patterns that we have talked about in our past episodes as well, right? So that's one narrative that they have, that if I continue to invest, the person will change their mind. So I mean, just hear the statement, right? Like, it's almost like you're convincing someone into falling in love with you. The second statement is that, I feel so strongly for this person. I fear that I will never feel this again for anyone else. So now that I'm feeling it, I can't let this go. I can't lose this. When a person feels like this, they don't understand that they almost think that this is the best case scenario and that they can't feel like this for anyone else. But it is not the best case scenario, given that it's only you who's feeling it. And you deserve to be in a relationship where you love someone and you get it in reciprocation, right? And when they're saying that I feel that I won't find this again, it's basically fear of missing out that they're experiencing. They don't want to miss out what they think is going to be the best. And why do they think that this is something that's going to be the best? Because uncertainty. Because this is one fear that, like almost every third client has when they walk into a session. And I think all my colleagues will agree on that people are so scared that what if I don't find love? What if I don't fall in love? What if I don't find the perfect, the one, And this is because we humans are not good at dealing with uncertainty. We want all the answers. And this is one question that you can't find an answer for. So, and there is so much sort of aided anxiety around this from the society, the media as well. Like it's almost like the entire world is waiting to meet their Mr. or Miss Perfect, and there's so much like collective anxiety around that thing that when we finally find anything that looks even remotely close to that, we just want to hang on to it and we don't want to let go. Because there's that constant fear that I won't find it in future. We don't want to live in that um, in that position where we cannot be certain, to let go of something that is not helpful, and to not yet have found something else, and being in the middle of that transition where you're just really like floating and like all on your own, and you don't have anything to hold on to. That place creates so much anxiety in people. We don't want that ever. That's the last thing we would want. And that's why we keep holding on, thinking, इससे better तो नहीं होगा, तो ये नहीं मैं जाने दे सकता या जाने दे सकती. Thirdly, another narrative that we have is that, again, like I discussed, that I don't want to lose them, but the question is, how can you lose something that you don't even have? So ask yourself, do I have it? Do I have it in my mind? What is it that I'm not ready to let go? My fantasy, my dream world, when I lie down and I dream about them every night in my perfect world, in my fantasy land, is that what I don't want to let go? Right? Other than that, if someone is repeatedly falling into such equations, I'm asked this question: why do I keep falling into very similar kind of relationship equations? Perhaps where I'm always the one who's falling very deeply in love with someone, but them not reciprocating. If it's a pattern, if you see this happening more than one time, and not just in romantic relationships, but it seems like all of your relationships are one-sided, then you need to tap into, okay, what are the patterns that I'm living by? So all the patterns that we've discussed, perhaps there are certain core beliefs that are coming from those patterns. Like we discussed, one of the core beliefs being that I'm not worthy of love. So if I continue to stay in a relationship where they're not reciprocating the love, then I'm living consistent to this belief. I'm feeding into this belief that I am not worthy of love. I'm unlovable. And unconsciously, I'm just actually living for this belief. I want to feed into this belief because it's such a core belief. So it's really like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I think that's what the case is. I continue to live like that and continue to self sabotage and put my heart in a place where I'm not going to get what I'm truly looking for. So if it's a pattern, then tap into that and recognize perhaps where you're coming from and what your attachment style is.
Right. And Praneeth, I think another word that we very often hear you using in on these episodes is how sometimes we turn into an autopilot mode with our relationships, right? And with even with equations that we're talking right now too, that can be a possibility, like you already touched upon, how you don't really see what's happening for what it is. How do you lose something that you don't have? But at the same time, I do think that for a lot of people, just this pursuit, this equation becomes like a known space, maybe because they've seen that pattern earlier. And that's why they've switched to that autopilot mode where they're just not seeing anything, just going at it. So what do you have to say about that?
Right. That's a wonderful question. So let's understand what's happening essentially. We are in a place where we are in a relationship that's giving us, or in an equation that is giving us constant anxiety. It's evoking a lot of overthinking and anxiety and sleepless nights and all of that inside of us. And yet we're somehow very oddly comfortable being in this position, because there is no intimacy, because this person is not reciprocating love. And perhaps I'm comfortable with being in a position where I don't have to be very intimate, but also have a sense of having a companion, so like you said, that the pattern is so familiar, having someone who you're chasing after, but they're not completely being yours, is so familiar that you continue to be in that position. But and then you shrink your consciousness in that area so that you can continue to be in that position. The moment you open your eyes and you start to look at, oh wait, I am signing up for something that is not making me happy, the moment you start to do that, you will have to let go. You would want to let go, you would not feel that strongly, so why you shrink your consciousness in certain areas always? Because that particular area has a lot of sense of self, have has a lot of is a place where you derive a lot of sense of self from, so if you lose that, then you don't just lose that person or that equation or that hope, you lose a part of yourself. You lose who you think you are. You start to devalue yourself. You can't look at yourself in that high regard anymore. That is exactly why rejections also hurt so much. It's not so much about losing a person. You grieve about a lost person, and then you recover from it eventually. But when with that grief, with that person going away, your sense of self goes away, that is just something very difficult to deal with, because you're literally experiencing a loss of a part of who you are. If you had extended yourself to this much, you've now come to this, and you're constantly living with that. Constantly, you can't get away with it. You can't distract yourself from it. You'll do it temporarily and you'll come back right to it. So that is what leads to this constant turmoil, where you continue to expose yourself to a place where you're oddly satisfied. You don't have to look at the reality that may hurt so much, and that's why you shrink your consciousness in that area. So what do such people end up saying? That I don't want to put myself in a position where I am really hurt. But look at the position that you're in right now. How happy are you in this position? Aren't you really hurt here? Aren't you getting hurt every day of your life? Maybe you're okay for now, but the moment a third person comes into the picture, perhaps in the life of the person that you have developed feelings for, it's just really going to screw up with your mind. And you know that, and yet you keep exposing yourself to that position because you don't want to go through that hurt. So, what do we do when we're in such a position? Here's what we need to do. When it comes to emotions, we've talked about it a lot, right? We can't heal from something that we don't feel. We need to build appetite for this kind of rejection. We need to build appetite for this kind of loss, so that we can then extend our sense of self yet again, from this person to perhaps getting in touch with other parts of ourselves on our own, by building capacity for these emotions, because if you think that you can go on with life without being vulnerable ever, without getting rejection ever, then you're really living in a bubble. And when that bubble will burst, it's going to hurt doubly more, you know. So you can't go on in life really like cutting out these negative emotions, so to speak. Although I don't think these emotions are negative emotions. They're all a part of our true existence. They hold the essence of our existence in our living. These emotions guide us in the right direction, and they tell us, do you want this or not? you know and we feel very anxious in a position, very insecure in a position. It tells us that this is not what you're looking for, this is not making you happy. And when you feel really happy, really like at peace, calm, that this is what I want to pursue. How else do we figure out? We figure out through our emotions, so we can't put a lid on them. So what we need to do is that we need to build capacity for these emotions. So bit by bit, we need to expand our consciousness in the areas where we've shrunken it down. And you have to, like, baby steps, very slowly. The first step may be just noticing, how am I shrinking my consciousness in this area? You know, and perhaps going back to the instances where you have felt rejected, and perhaps trying to sit with them and see how they made you feel, and then how you recovered from those feelings, because it's those experiences that is making it even more difficult and challenging for you to deal with this today. It's that narrative that you've formed based on your past experiences with these emotions. So get in touch with that, have that chat with your emotions, open both your gates and let these emotions come in. And I'll always tell all my clients that, move your furniture, have them sit in your living room and have a conversation with these emotions. Befriend them, get acquainted with them and see what they have to say. They don't have to be such a scary place to be in.
Right, that was a beautiful answer, Penny. It makes a lot of sense. Now, taking a bit of a detour and talking about a very specific situation. So, I've heard of a lot of people trying something called a no strings attached relationship, wherein they're maybe hooking up, or I don't know, like going on one dates or something like that. But a lot of times, one person ends up developing feelings and the other one doesn't. So, what do you have to say about this whole situation?
Right. This is actually quite a common equation these days. You see, we're coming from a place in our relationships, uh, just how like we look at relationships as humans, that this hookup culture is still relatively very new for us. You know, um, Perhaps 10 years back it wasn't as prominent as it is today. So we're still seeing the equation of relationships evolving, and this is still very new, and it's not very black and white kind of a place where you just know like how to navigate through it. The lines are very blur sometimes. So to make it a little more easy to understand, let's look at Robert Sternberg's theory, triangle of love, he says it. So in that theory, he says that there are three pillars of a romantic relationship. One pillar is intimacy. Now, intimacy is the friendship part of the relationship, emotional intimacy, where you share everything, you talk about how you're feeling and just like exchange, your stories and all of that. Then there is the second part, that is passion, right? This is the desire part, the sex part, or the sexual intimacy part, how driven you are towards each other, the wildness, the adventure part of the relationship. And third being the commitment part, right? Where you're exclusively engaged with each other and you've decided to go on for forever, right? Um, so these are the three pillars that Sternberg says that a relationship stands on for it to be a stable relationship. He says, however, you don't need to have all three of these pillars uh, being there in both the people, like in the couple. Sometimes relationships can go on even if a couple has two pillars, given that both the partners have similar pillars. Because if they don't, then that's a problem. So let's say that, I want commitment and intimacy, but my partner wants passion and intimacy, but they don't want commitment, right? Or this is what they want. That we're not fitting. It's nowhere fitting. But if they also want intimacy and passion, then we just fit. There's no conflict, no conflict of interest. We're coming together with same expectations from each other. Now, here's what happens when you're in a hookup kind of an equation. Both of you are coming together for passion primarily. Sometimes there's an additional sort of a pillar, which is of intimacy, emotional intimacy. Now we're going to come together and we're going to have all the sex, but we're also going to talk about our lives. We're also going to have a chat. We're also going to go out for a cup of coffee and just talk about things, or perhaps our past experiences, laugh together, chill together, how they say, you know and this chilling then can start to lead to um, the need for commitment in one of the partners, and now this partner wants commitment as well, but this person is still all right with there being just passion and intimacy. So this is where the balance starts to go out of the window, right? So here's what I have to say about one person developing feelings in a hookup equation is that you need to be first honest to yourself that this is what I have developed. And once they're honest to themselves, they need to be honest to their partner if they don't want to end up being hurt. Now let's talk about why do people not do that? Again, because we don't want to lose whatever we have. Being with this person who you're having great sex with and having lots of like chats with, you're sharing life stories and everything is making you feel wonderful, but you're betraying a part of yourself that wants commitment, you know and you can't continue to betray this part of yourself for too long. A lot of conflict is going to come up. Perhaps this partner of yours is ready to explore more partners, or is ready to, or is dating, is into dating and stuff. And now that's going to start bothering you. Or they're not factoring you in as much as you're factoring them in. They're not worried about taking emotional responsibility for you as much as you want them to. So all of these things are going to eventually really start hurting you. And if you're lying to yourself that no, sometimes we really end up lying to ourselves also. That no, I don't want it. Yeah, we shook on it. That it's just going to be sex and maybe a little bit of talking and nothing else. We made it very clear. So like I'll come across as very stupid if I do this. I'll come across as very naive if I do this. I'll come across as very clingy if I do this. We start to shame ourselves. And where is this shame coming from? Again, from our past experiences, where every time that we were vulnerable, we were deeply hurt by this other person that we were vulnerable with, perhaps our parents. So this is what how you can save yourself, that you need to be authentic and honest to yourself. The moment you betray yourself, you're going to be betrayed in the relationship equation as well. But because then it's your responsibility. Despite knowing that you wanted this and you never told your partner, you continue to expose yourself to a position where you kept getting hurt, then it's your responsibility. Then you cannot say that this person broke my heart, or they cheated upon me. A lot of that we see in sessions, they come ahead and they're like, they cheated upon me. And I ask them, but were you guys ever even committed? Yeah, no, but they knew that I had feelings for them. But did you ever tell them? And did you say that you wanted commitment? Yeah, no, that I didn't, because, but I didn't need to, they knew. So, like, all of these conversations happening in the mind really takes us nowhere. It's absolutely normal to develop feelings for anyone, especially when you're very close to someone in this kind of an equation, a hookup equation. So, it's not a can't happen rule, it's a matter of emotions. You can't really control it, but you can take it into consideration when it does come up.
One last question that I want to ask you is that how does one heal or cope with all the pain that comes with being in one-sided love?
Right. So to begin with, awareness. Awareness is the key. You have to be conscious of where you're putting yourself in. Where are you putting your heart? How you're feeling, what you expect. Think about these three pillars and ask yourself, where am I at? What do I want? Do I want commitment? Do I want intimacy? Do I want passion? Or what do I want from these things? And is my partner on the same page? And if they're not, then tell this to yourself out loud, that I expect commitment from this person, but they're not ready to give it to me. And I am choosing to stay in an equation where I deeply love someone, but they don't love me back. And I will have to see them in the same capacity with someone else. Say that out loud to yourself, and then see how you feel. You know, so dimag ki batti jalao, and see what's happening. Be authentic and honest to yourself. That's the first step. The second step is to be honest to them, you know, to tell them how you feel so that you know and they know. And then thirdly, maybe consider, um, if you guys can work this out, like I said, if there is more to your equation, and this feeling is something that's just there in the passing, or there is feelings involved, yes, but there's more to this equation that you have with this person, and so you don't want to let go. And if they are not on the same page and you can't be friends with them, be honest to yourself. And then finally, if you have to experience rejection, do it mindfully. Be kind to yourself, be compassionate to yourself, and not put yourself in a position where you're constantly shaming yourself for being rejected by this person, where you're constantly asking what is wrong with me, and like blaming yourself and doubting yourself, and definitely beating yourself up for confessing, right? And take your time. Know that when you are confronting the emotions of grief and loss and rejection, it's going to be hard, it's going to be messy, it's going to be really like tasting and touching a dead rat, and you're going to have to do it. So be kind to yourself. That will make it easy. Surround yourself with people who do truly love you. Seek help, take support, get back in touch with those areas of your life that you couldn't get in touch with while you were with this person, while they became your entire world. And then those parts of yourself that you lost, try to find those extensions within yourself, in your hobbies, in something that you enjoy doing, in something that you did long back in your childhood, perhaps, but you stopped doing it, along the time.
Right. I have a few questions that people from our community have sent, so quickly taking that up. Right. And with that, we come to a close for today's episode. And the theme that we discussed today, I think it's something that all of us at some point have experienced and been there, done that. I think it's a very difficult road. And I hope that this episode was able to help you navigate through it just a little bit as well. And if it did, please do tell us in the comments below. And we'll see you next time with another episode. Till then, keep pouring your heart out.